Welcome and good morning. It is our honor today to have Rick Cotton, the Director of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, back to ABNY. Rick has had an amazing life in both public service and the private sector. He served in the Carter administration, he clerked for Supreme Court Justice Brennan, and he spent 25 years at NBC. Now, after all he's accomplished, the governor convinced him to come back and be our czar of infrastructure, and I'll say it was something that we badly needed. As head of the Port Authority, he takes on an agency that was once revered truly for building things on time and on budget. That includes the GW Bridge, which was built 2 generations ago, 4 years on time and on budget. Also built the Lincoln Tunnel and also built the World Trade Centers to really great global acclaim. And that acclaim has deteriorated, as has our infrastructure over the years. But Rick has been tasked with breathing new life into the Port Authority and working with his team, and they are doing an incredible job. LaGuardia is well underway, as many of you have seen, runways at JFK and a new terminal at Newark. We are truly, and to name just a few, we're really indebted for what he and his team are doing for the city and for our region. We're grateful to have him here. Ladies and gentlemen, Rick Cotton.
Good morning. Delighted to be here. Also struck by many friends who are in the audience. I do want to recognize, before I plunge in, Gary LaBarbera, Commissioner on the board of the Port Authority and a major supporter of our efforts as leader of the Building Trades Council. Appreciate it. I also have many colleagues from the Port Authority in the audience. I do want to acknowledge 3, and I apologize for not going through the longer list. But in the back of the room is Huntley Lawrence, Director of our Aviation Division. Somewhere in the audience is Derek Utter, our Chief Development Officer, actually all the way in the back. And then Mike Messiah. Where is Mike? Back, also in the back. I'm very proud to say that Mike, one of the first things that the chairman and I did when we arrived was to name the first Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at the Port Authority, and Mike was good enough to step up and take the job. And part of the airport effort, which we are totally committed to, is ensuring that we honor the 30% goal that New York Governor Cuomo was the first to set, but which the Port Authority Board adopted a year ago, and we are on track in all of our projects. So with that, I will turn to the subject at hand. I do want to lay out what we're doing at our airports. What I would just say also, however, is we're just a few blocks from the World Trade Center site, and I commend that to everybody here. There's interesting street art on some of the buildings that are still under development, and tomorrow Smorgasburg from Brooklyn will be there, so you might want to come back. Turning to our airports, I think it's important to acknowledge that our protagonists here, the airports, are actually in a pretty sorry state. If we set the context, the 3 major airports of the Port Authority have for years and years consistently ranked at or very near the bottom of every single customer survey that assesses passenger experience. The Wall Street Journal survey, Kennedy, LaGuardia, and Newark are literally at the bottom of its rankings of the nation's largest airports. J.D. Power, Kennedy and Newark are at the bottom of their list of their category of mega airports, and LaGuardia takes the bottom honors in their category of large airports. Skytrax, which ranks international airports, ranked Kennedy 69th in the world, and Newark didn't make the top 100. So the simple framing question that I keep talking about is, in what universe is that acceptable? So 2 topics this morning. I'll spend most time discussing our airport redevelopment programs, but I also want to touch briefly on the Port Authority's major new focus on improving customer experience at all of our airports. Today is truly an historic juncture at the region's airports and at the Port Authority in terms of capital investment. Port Authority's current 10-year capital plan is going to drive more than $28 billion in public and private funds to rebuild our airports. This is the highest level of airport investment in the port's 98-year history, and probably the largest airport investment plan today, certainly in the nation and probably in the world. This morning, I want to focus on our 4 major airport projects that make up the bulk of this investment program: LaGuardia, the LaGuardia Air Train, Kennedy, and the state-of-the-art Terminal 1 at Newark. With respect to both Kennedy and LaGuardia, the redevelopment plans began with comprehensive master plans developed by Governor Cuomo's Airport Advisory Panel. This was a critically important change from the Port Authority's past, which simply had a totally ad hoc approach. But today's discussion is not about planning, it's about moving forward and translating the governor's vision into reality. Very quickly, just in terms of the major planning points that the panel took into account: public-private partnerships with design, build, construction, very, very important, recognizing what government does and doesn't do well, and it does not do construction well. That approach translates into utilizing the creative expertise of the private sector, both in construction and in operation. Robust community engagement. We're completely committed, as we do these mega projects, to engage with the community that neighbor them. World-class terminals and amenities, 21st century customer experience driven by 21st century technology, state-of-the-art security, simplified roadways, easy access to ground transportation, improved airport access, and top-notch civic architecture and art as we rebuild. But we are now in the get-it-done mode. Our overarching commitment is to doing, not talking, and the LaGuardia project is in the lead. So let's turn to LaGuardia. We have 2 private sector partners at LaGuardia, LaGuardia Gateway Partners and Delta Airlines, and between these 2 partners and the Port Authority, we are investing $8 billion, with more than 3/4 of the funding, $6 billion, coming from private sources to rebuild LaGuardia from the ground up. Together, we are moving faithfully toward following the master plan that was outlined by the Airport Advisory Panel. And we are building a whole new airport. Once complete, LaGuardia will be the first totally new airport in the country in more than 25 years. And make no mistake, we're tearing down every single passenger building with the exception of the landmark Marine Air Terminal and rebuilding brand new facilities. We're also tearing down the entire old roadway network and rebuilding a wholly new one. Earlier this year, J.D. Power labeled LaGuardia the largest single airport renovation project currently underway anywhere in the world. Perhaps our greatest challenge is to keep the airport fully operational throughout the construction process. And open it is. LaGuardia is not just staying operational, it is literally handling record numbers of passengers every month. How is this possible? The airport never loses capacity because no old structure is torn down before there is a new one to replace it. We build new gates to create new capacity that then allows us to tear down the old gates and once again build additional new gates in their place. And to manage the traffic, there is round-the-clock operations center with cameras monitoring every single roadway and directing police and operations staff on a minute-by-minute basis to implement pre-planned traffic control strategies to keep traffic flowing. It is a constant challenge, but the team has become extremely skilled. This year will be the greatest challenge yet, given the stage of the construction. So if you're flying out of LaGuardia on a Thursday, Friday, or Sunday, help the team out by leaving a little extra time. But I will promise you, today's construction-related challenges will be worth it when the new LaGuardia is complete. I also just received a text message about an hour ago saying that today will be the single busiest day that LaGuardia has experienced ever in its history. So, fingers crossed. After breaking ground just 2 summers ago, we celebrated in December the opening of the new LaGuardia's first new concourse. The concourse is 250,000 square feet of passenger space with 18 gates and more than a dozen concessions. Gate delivery is available for all food items. Retail choices range from toys to books to duty-free. And the pictures that you see, one that's up now and the next chart or two, should give you a sense of how much is changing at LaGuardia. And I want to emphasize, these are photographs, not artists' renderings. I have actually been there when passengers getting off planes in the new concourse do double takes and exclaim, "Did I take the wrong plane? Is this LaGuardia?" But it is. The new concourse features state-of-the-art architecture, dramatically more spacious gate areas, which, by the way, was not hard to do, and 55-foot floor-to-ceiling windows that allow ample natural light to fill the space. And then there are the bathrooms. What seems to give passengers the biggest and best surprise in the new concourse are the restrooms. The restrooms have become the star of the show on social media. If you don't believe me, go to Twitter. Bigger, better, cleaner, with careful design features like shelves above the sinks to keep possessions dry and larger stalls to allow easier access with roller bags. Concessions bring appealing offerings from local food and retail merchants into the airport. And what you see in the new concourse, you will soon see across the entire airport. We will be opening major new portions of the airport with regularity almost every 9 to 12 months over the next 3 years. Now here's the footprint of the entire new airport. Note two things. First, as I said, every single building you see in the rendering is being built brand new from the ground up. Second, the entire integrated frontage of the new airport has moved forward closer to the Grand Central Parkway. That allows the airport to add vastly expanded airplane taxiway to reduce gate congestion. In the new LaGuardia, you should never hear the pilots say, "We can't get to our gate because there's an airplane blocking the alleyway." The first new concourse at Terminal B, which I've just been discussing, is highlighted in the rendering with a red circle toward the upper left of the slide. Next to be completed will be the expansive arrivals and departures hall for Terminal B. That is the large building that you actually see most prominently under construction today from the Grand Central Parkway with new access roadways. There will be 3 levels being built immediately in front of it. That will open in 2020. Which I constantly find shocking is actually next year. Then will come the equally large arrivals and departures hall on the eastern end of the airport as part of Delta's new Terminal C, which will open in 2021. And you see this in the lower right in the rendering on the screen. The central hall and connecting concourse between Terminal B and Terminal C will complete the airport's integrated facilities along the Grand Central. The 2 air train stations, with one serving the Central Hall and one serving the Delta terminal on the eastern side of the airport, will also be a part of the airport's integrated frontage. The 2 air train stations here are highlighted in red. In addition to the concourse that opened 3 months ago, 5 additional concourses will open in phases as they are completed, with substantial completion of the new integrated airport targeted for early 2022. And there you have it, an entire new LaGuardia Airport coming soon. The timeline has moved quickly from unveiling the vision a little over 3 years ago to breaking new ground to actually opening the garage and the first new gates last year, with other phases coming online steadily. We could not be more pleased that Joe Biden's third world LaGuardia is demonstrably on its way to becoming a thing of the past. Turning now to the LaGuardia Air Train and access to the airport. For travelers, access to the airport ranks enormously high on the value chain, and every single customer survey that you see reemphasizes that point. We are responding to those needs. LaGuardia is the only major East Coast airport without a direct rail mass transit connection. Today, every single passenger must use our clogged roadway network to access LaGuardia. Only a single-digit percentage of passengers use mass transit. We force passengers onto congested roads that every person in this room is familiar with, from the LIE to the Grand Central Parkway to the BQE to the FDR. And forcing passengers onto the roads is not good for anybody. It's not good for motorists who are not going to the airport because it simply adds to their congestion and the length of their travel time. It's not good for passengers who want to go to LaGuardia because it makes their trip unreliable and uncertain in terms of time of travel, and it's not good for the environment. It just adds to air pollution and adds to greenhouse gases. And what's more, peak travel times from Manhattan to LaGuardia have done nothing but rise in recent years. Between 2013 and 2017, the peak period drive times rose from 34 minutes to 48 minutes as an average. That's an increase of over 40%, and it's only going to get worse. And it's no longer arithmetic, it's geometric. Every single car causes far more than a proportional increase in congestion. If we do nothing, the length of time it will take to get to LaGuardia during peak travel times will simply become intolerable. By 2045, our analysis shows that drive times to LaGuardia from Midtown will take around an hour and a half during the peak of the peak. And because travelers, to assure they won't miss flights or meetings, have to consider at least worst-case scenarios for ground travel, travelers will have to build in greater and greater cushion to allow for increasing potential delays. And obviously, that is not acceptable as a future vision. LaGuardia AirTrain, by contrast, will provide a vital, reliable train-to-plane alternative that will get passengers out of cars and off roadways. Reliable and predictable. Our ridership study and survey shows that 6 to 10 million passengers will use the LaGuardia AirTrain every year. On the screen is our preferred alternative. It will run from Midtown Manhattan, either Penn Station or Grand Central, once East Side Access opens. It will be a 16-minute trip on the LIR to Willets Point and 6 minutes from Willets Point to LaGuardia. That route involves no taking of private property, no construction in residential areas. It runs only along the Grand Central Parkway and then across a corner of parking lots currently used by the Mets. We plan to have easy ticketing booths at Penn Station, easy ticketing and boarding at Grand Central, not to mention easy ticketing throughout the Long Island Railroad station network. At Willets Point, we're committed to a Long Island Railroad to AirTrain connection that will be a seamless transfer. The bottom line, in my view, it would be irresponsible and indefensible not to provide this mass transit link to LaGuardia, and we and the governor are committed to it. Turning now to JFK. JFK is the region's major international gateway. This past October, Governor Cuomo announced a $13 billion project to create a new JFK, with $12 billion coming from private sources, leveraged by $1 billion of direct Port Authority capital, an enormously favorable ratio. Over the past decades, JFK's passenger traffic has soared from 10 million passengers in 1961 to 60 million a year today. And we are on pace to hit a record 75 million passengers by 2030 and 100 million by 2050. The existing passenger facilities simply can't handle this projected growth. But it's not just lack of capacity. JFK today cannot hold its own against the new breed of 21st century airports, both here in the US and most certainly around the globe. JFK's reputation has declined precipitously over the years. In 2017, Governor Cuomo said no more. He announced his vision for a new JFK. The Governor's Airport Advisory Panel delivered a comprehensive vision in 2017. The goal, transform JFK into the international gateway that New York deserves. The core elements of the new JFK vision: integrate the airport into a unified system of world-class terminals, provide world-class amenities, and a brand new world-class hotel, streamline the traffic pattern, create ground transportation centers that provide easy access to cabs, Ubers, buses, improve AirTrain access, integrate the 21st century security technology, and include the community in the planning every step of the way. That's a tall order, but we are committed to it. As I've said, to implement this vision, the Port Authority has developed a $13 billion redevelopment program. This is the largest single transportation infrastructure commitment in the 98-year history of the Port Authority. Now, the current context here is the unhappy state of JFK today, particularly compared to other global airports. And my own view is that most people who use JFK are actually not fully aware of the hodgepodge that currently exists. Looking at the map of the current airport, which is on the screen, you can see that two of the sites, where Terminal 3 and Terminal 6 used to be, are literally vacant today. Those are highlighted with the red arrows. Two buildings, Delta's current Terminal 2 and British Air's Terminal 7, are literally 50 or more years old, and a third, Terminal 1, the international terminal, is appallingly undersized and ill-equipped to handle today's volumes. Those three are highlighted in yellow. This hodgepodge of 8 disparate terminals simply cannot possibly continue. The airport panel's vision and the project we announced in October will create a truly 21st century unified airport. Let me give you the broad strokes and the basic layout of the plan. The two key pillars are, first, JetBlue will develop a major new international terminal on the north, adjacent to its existing terminal. Second, the Terminal 1 group, a coalition of Lufthansa, Air France, Japan Airlines, and Korean Airlines, will develop a major new international terminal on the south. The selection of these two proposals represented the culmination of an extensive year-long evaluation process by a committee of Port Authority aviation experts. These two proposals will demolish the 3 outdated, undersized terminals and utilize the 2 vacant sites to build 2 new world-class international terminals. The Terminal 1 group will build the terminal anchoring the south, which is highlighted on this slide in the red circle. JetBlue will lead the redevelopment of the northern half of the airport, building its own world-class expanded terminal, highlighted in red on the north of the airport footprint on this chart. All the new terminals will be connected by a much simplified roadway network. Ultimately, there will be a North Loop Road and a South Loop Road, which will be far easier to navigate than today's spaghetti road network. At the center of the airport, we plan as a separate initiative to develop a new JFK Central Hub. It will include 2 ground transportation centers within this central hub. We will see private sector input and bids for further development, potentially including additional retail, dining, entertainment, hotel, and other passenger amenities. This is precisely the path that many global airports are pursuing. These 2 projects will achieve increased capacity, enabling JFK to handle 75 to 80 million passengers a year, up from today's 60 million a year. And the new JFK will provide best-in-class customer experience from curb to gate. We are benchmarking against global airport quality standards. Our goal is to get JFK out of the basement and into the top tier of global airports, and we are targeting getting into the top 10 in customer rankings. And to signal progress, in less than 1 month, that's right, Tyler Morris in the back, the world-class full-service TWA hotel will open as one of the early signs of the changes to come. The new hotel and conference center builds on Kennedy's storied past and reinvigorates one of the airport's most recognizable landmarks with a magnificent observation deck and enormously attractive hotel and conference facilities, not to mention a world-class restaurant under the aegis of world-famous Jean-Georges von Richten. When was the last time you thought of going to JFK for a world-class meal? And the latest news you may have heard about earlier this year, we just announced another major JFK deal, a $344 million investment by American Airlines in partnership with British Airways to expand and enhance American's Terminal 8. The Terminal 8 upgrade and British Air's commitment to relocate its operations there is a key element of the rebuild of the northern section of JFK. Terminal 8 will gain additional gates to handle expanded international service, allowing for an innovative shuttle-like service to London. We could not be more pleased with the participation of American, British Air, JetBlue, and our 4 Terminal 1 partners, Lufthansa, Air France, Japan Air, and Korean Air, in our transformation of JFK. As befits any Governor Cuomo project, we are committed to an aggressive timeline. The upgrade of Terminal 8 is scheduled to open in 2022, bringing with it the new JFK's first new gates. In 2023, the new north and south terminals will begin to open, with full airport completion by 2025. And by the way, we're still not done. We will have further important JFK announcements as we move forward on transforming the airport. Now, I haven't discussed cargo today, but it is a major part of the JFK master plan. We are going to reorganize and rationalize the cargo operations. We announced the first major deal a year ago, and we'll be shortly announcing a second. We are committed to a complete overhaul and modernization of JFK's cargo capabilities. So, turning across the river to Newark Liberty International Airport. In February 2018, the Port Authority Board approved the largest design-build contract the Port Authority has ever undertaken in New Jersey to construct a new world-class Terminal 1 to replace the aging and strikingly outdated Terminal A. Terminal A is nearly 50 years old and was designed to handle less than 9 million passengers annually. Last year, more than 11 million passengers flew through Terminal A, and the current state of Terminal A, designed before 9/11, is simply totally untenable and totally unacceptable. The new Terminal 1 is a strategic first step in the ultimate transformation of Newark. It will help position the airport to meet the needs of passengers and airlines alike in the 21st century. The new terminal will feature 33 common-use gates spread between 3 new concourses. Those 3 concourses are highlighted in red on this slide. The terminal will also have the capacity to expand to 45 gates. The new Terminal 1 will be built to accommodate up to 13 million passengers annually, with the potential to expand to handle more than 19 million every year. Terminal 1 will be connected by a pedestrian bridge to a brand new $400 million structure, providing a combined central rent-a-car facility and new public parking garage. So where are we today on this project? We broke ground on the Terminal 1 redevelopment project in October of last year. Shortly thereafter, our board selected Munich Airport International, a world-class 5-star private terminal operator, to operate and maintain the new Terminal 1. And Terminal 1 construction is now well underway. Steel for the 3 concourses will top out in the next 60 days or so, and the head house steel will top out by the end of the summer. It is fully under construction. The majority of new gates at the terminal will open in 2021, with the balance coming online a year later. And there is more to come. Governor Murphy asked the Port Authority to initiate a review of the Newark AirTrain, and we are actively analyzing proposals to present to our board. So that is the Port Authority's $28 billion airport renovation agenda. But we are not just focused on bricks and mortar. We need to up our game dramatically, I might add, at all 3 of our airports on improving the customer experience. This is, from our point of view, a major and multi-pronged effort. We have done journey mapping from curb to gate to identify and address all passenger pain points. We have improved and renovated multiple restrooms and instituted new intense cleaning programs. We have installed free and fast Wi-Fi at all the airports. We have developed the capability to provide real-time information on security and taxi wait times, both on signage at the airport and on mobile-friendly websites. We have insisted on the provision of family-friendly services and amenities, everything from baby supplies at concessions, to family restrooms, to play areas, to breastfeeding facilities. Food delivery directly to the gate is now available, and the provision of accessibility for the elderly and passengers with disabilities has a high priority. We have improved operation of taxi lines and taxi dispatch, which I might add is a pet peeve of mine, and we have improved the for-hire vehicle accessibility. We are seeking real-time monitoring of elevators and escalators to reduce outages. We have employed more customer care representatives. We are focused on providing better assistance for passengers with connecting flights. We are enhancing lost and found capabilities with the goal of having a single website where all passengers can go that will combine all of the multiple lost and founds that are scattered across each airport. We have created state-of-the-art mobile-friendly websites. We are seeking improved baggage handling. And finally, all of the airports will be enhancing the use of biometrics technology across the board. In sum, our airports are gateways to the greatest metropolitan region in the world, and we are committed to providing airports worthy of New York. Last year, 138 million travelers passed through our airports. Our goal is to transform our airports and to transform our customers' experience to best in class, a far cry from the passenger experiences of the past. So stay tuned as we move our airports from back of the pack to 21st century. And remember, we are doing it, not just talking, and on time and on budget. Thanks for your time.
Rick's agreed to take a few questions, if anyone has any questions.
William White with MCR. Just curious, what airports internationally did you look at to model what we're doing that we should aspire to here in New York, and what were some of the key takeaways from that?
Well, I want everyone to know that Huntley Lawrence, he said it was a burden, but took a trip to personally inspect all of the major airports in Asia and in Europe. So it's a distillation of best practices. Changi, Singapore, Shanghai, high on the list in Asia, Heathrow, Charles de Gaulle, others in Europe. But what I would say is one of the main things that we've tried to actually instill at the Port Authority is the notion of benchmarking, really across the board. My experience is that large organizations, both public and private, are enormously inward focused. They've done things a certain way, generally forever, and therefore, they have convinced themselves that the reason they're doing it is that they're the best, without regard to what is going on elsewhere in the country or in the world. So I have to say, Huntley and his colleagues have embraced the benchmarking notion. As I said, he personally visited these airports, and the distillation in terms of Kennedy has drawn heavily. The Asian airports really set the global standard, but there are many things that we've learned from the European airports and even some of the US airports. And there are two sets of lessons. One is brick and mortar. The other is a focus on passenger experience. And it really takes a focus on both, and they're different. And we have tried to incorporate those lessons into how we look at the redevelopment plans.
Amy Vargas from Anheuser-Busch. I just wanted to ask, a lot of the conversation that we had this morning is about the passenger experience, but can you talk a little bit about the efforts that you're making within the communities that these airports lie in? Because I know there's a lot of effort there to try to work with the local elected officials and community organizations. So if you can speak a little bit to that.
Well, we've tried to really frame this around, we are committed to two goals and really attach almost equal importance to both. First is to build these facilities to push the mega project through what are very difficult planning, permitting, construction. But the second goal is to do it with the intense consultation and attention to the surrounding communities. And what I think a lesson you learn early in terms of overseeing infrastructure projects is that it's necessary both from in order to accomplish a project within a reasonable time, and it's also the right thing to do. The fact is that our facilities impose significant burdens on the neighborhoods that surround the airports, but also our other facilities. And what is important is to establish mechanisms where there's not only input from the local communities, but there's a real commitment to ensure that some of the benefits that these projects are capable of delivering, such as jobs, such as business opportunities, inure to the benefit of the local communities. And just to cite one example, when the new concourse at LaGuardia opened in December, there were hundreds of jobs at these new concessions, and our outreach office in Queens was successful in having more than 50% of those jobs go to Queens residents. And the program to engage local businesses and to engage minority and women-owned businesses, the MWBE part of that program passed $1 billion of contracts in the last few months, and the commitment to local Queens businesses passed $330 million also in the last few months. So it is that kind of commitment that we want to see at all of our projects and engage with the community to identify ways to mitigate the impacts that we have.
I was curious what you see as the kind of future for the World Trade Center, and particularly the site to the south that has been undeveloped over the years.
Well, I guess a couple of comments. First, the World Trade Center site took a major step forward about 9 months ago when Tower 3 opened. So there are now 4 office buildings, commercial buildings on the World Trade Center site. Today, 35,000 employees come to the site every day. The existing buildings ultimately will have a population of 45,000 employees. So those 4 buildings are up and operating. The memorial and museum are obviously up and operating. So if you look at the site, it really has become an important part of the Lower Manhattan community, and we're committed today to activating it, to being a good citizen and an important part of the Lower Manhattan community in terms of its current configuration. Smorgasbord is one example. There are farmers markets that occur twice a week outside in the summer and now once a week inside. There are movie nights in the summer. We want the campus to be energetic and active, really, I think, as a tribute to those who lost their lives on 9/11, because I think the biggest tribute we can pay to them is to bring that site back more energetic and more lively than ever before. In terms of the next steps, the Performing Arts Center is the construction site that is currently active. Actually, yesterday was a big day because in terms of key steel supports, the last one actually got put in, and they will soon be in full swing in terms of building that Performing Arts Center, which itself will be a major part of the community. The final 2 pieces that are left are the Terminal 2 site, which is under the development, where Silverstein has the development rights, and Terminal 5, which is a combined responsibility of the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation and the Port Authority. And we would like to see those 2 sites develop as soon as possible. And those are both actively under consideration. We don't have a timeline, but those will be the final 2 pieces of the site, and we're committed to moving those forward.
Just 2 numbers. One, you said that the traffic the traffic time to drive from New York City to LaGuardia, you said that that's been increasing, and I was wondering the reason why it's been increasing. And the second number is you said that the number of passengers coming into JFK is increasing, and it will continue to increase to I guess 135 million or something like that. What are the reasons for the increases?
Well, I think that there is a general growth of population in terms of vehicles on the road. I mean, the reason that the congestion pricing charge scheme is dominating discussion is that, in general, vehicular traffic in Manhattan in particular, but across the region, is simply growing, in part population growth, in part the changing nature of for-hire vehicles. But that statement and that percentage increase is not based on surveys. It is based on GPS data from taxis and from FHVs. So it's not really a debate as to whether it's increasing. The data is there, which indicates it regardless of the source. Air traffic is growing across the globe. Planes are getting bigger. Population worldwide is growing. And what you see, I mean, the reason to say that today will be the largest passenger volume that LaGuardia has, I'm commenting on the traffic, but the fact is JFK is setting records, Newark is setting records, the entire travel industry globally is growing, and New York is a very popular destination.
Thank you. Lloyd Zuckerberg, interested New Yorker. 2 questions, one short. Why does New York seem to be the only city in the world where you have to pay for a luggage cart? And number 2, when I travel to other airports, the connectivity among all the people providing services is seamless. Whereas in New York, there seems to be a lot more outsourcing, which makes the process not seamless. So I once arrived, there were no smart cards, couldn't get a SkyCap, and the airline said, well, we subcontract that out, we can't do anything about that. It was a mess. Fixing that interconnectivity would, I think, make the customer experience much better.
I'll take the second question first. So that is what I meant in terms of, or was referring to in terms of journey mapping. The history of Kennedy, but really of all of the Port Authority airports, have been that the terminals are operated by private operators. And the history there, it's a good history in the sense that they're public-private partnerships, and they were the result of a conclusion, again, that government doesn't operate commercial, passenger-oriented facilities well, so that the reason to turn to private operators is that they're more skilled, and that is what they do. The difficulty is the one that you refer to, which is, to some extent, it winds up being a disparate set of entities that are responsible for different parts, and so you wind up with a tendency, frequently over time, to fall into the not my job framework. So the virtues of the public-private partnership have to be overseen by the public agency, in this case the Port Authority. Port Authority has to set standards, it has to monitor those standards, and it has to enforce those standards. And what I would just say candidly is that the organization hasn't done that over time. So it is exactly to solve the problem that you cite, which is coordination and which is a very consistent and a comprehensive list of what needs to work right in order for the passenger experience to be seamless. We're not close to being there, but that is exactly what we're working at. We want new facilities, but we exactly want that from curb to gate to be seamless. In fact, we want to be seamless from when the passenger is planning his or her journey all the way through to when they arrive at the destination, that we, as the airport, are being as helpful as possible from the point of view of information, planning tools, much of it digital, but then also in terms of the interaction at the airport of being as being best in class. And as I say, we're not close to it, but there are airports, as you say, which are very good at it. So it's not as if we can't learn in terms of what needs to be done. It is the implementation that is a challenge, but again, we're committed to it. There are historic reasons, most of them having to do with revenue, why there's a charge for the carts, and we continue to look at it, and I guess all I would say is we'll keep you posted.
All right. Rick, this is awesome, and it's spectacular to see everything. Thank you, and please join me in thanking him, Rick Cotton, for his service.